Hello and welcome. First, a word from our sponsors, Everett. Thank you, Everett. If you haven't been here before, welcome, and thank you for coming. I am a writer and an illustrator and a mama, of course. And today I'm going to read you a flash fiction short story that I wrote last year. It is a fantasy short story, and the name of it is Scarborough and Batu. And if Everett doesn't have anything else to say, which I'm sure he does, Everett, do you have anything else to say? Apparently he does. Let us begin.
Why steal things if they are neither magical nor shiny?
Batu asked, staring at the icon tied around his long neck. It was a portrait of a woman. He was walking beside an old dirt road, frustratedly pondering.
"Stop, dog!"
shouted a voice from far behind. Batu wound his long neck to see who was shouting. It was the priest.
"Snitches," grumbled Batu. "Now I'm caught."
A woman up the road screamed.
"Don't worry, woman," cried the priest, running towards Batu, followed by his servants. "It's just a long, misshapen, overgrown dog."
Batu's voice rumbled in the pit of his throat.
"I'm not a dog."
The priest's servants recoiled. The priest's face had an annoying lack of pigment, making him look fleshy and worm-like. He sneered.
"Dog, demon, I don't care. Give back the portrait."
"No," Batu chuckled.
"And I'm not a demon."
He swirled his long white body into a spiral and sprung towards the woman. The girl yowled, hiding her face in her apron. But Batu did not land on her. Instead, he caught a breeze with his head and, as if on a kite, he soared upwards through the wind's patterns. The priest yelled angrily as Batu took to the sky.
"The things I'd do for you, Scarborough,"
Batu mumbled, ducking his head and gaining speed. Batu loved flying. He watched the land below speed by like gears in a clock. Suddenly, a force hit Batu's shoulder, and pain coursed through his back. Batu looked back to see one of the priest's servants load an arrow to his bow.
"Horseradish!"
cursed Batu, flying down towards the ground. He took cover in a forest, weaving through the tall pines and oaks. His belly scraped the forest floor. The pain from the arrow began to grow. Batu gasped. He turned upward and dove for the lake. Water sprayed the land as Batu's huge form sank. The cool, sweet water momentarily relieved the pain. Hours passed. Batu laid on the lake's bottom.
"I must get the portrait to Scarborough,"
he thought, and emerged from the water to see pink clouds in the sky. He heard a shout. "Batu!" Batu snaked through the water. "Batu, what happened to you?" Scarborough stood on the sand, the evening wind blowing the ribbons in her long black braids.
"I was shot," moaned Batu. "I'm going to die."
"Oh, shut up," said Scarborough. "Don't be a baby." Scarborough pulled the arrow.
"Stop!" cried Batu. "You're killing me."
"Fancy a strong dragon killed by a splinter," Scarborough said, and yanked forcibly. The arrow pulled out, leaving a long trail of red blood on the sand. She took a lemon from her bag, broke it, and squeezed the hot juice over Batu's shoulder. "Ah!" Batu roared, darting away. "Hush," she said. "This is
All I have to treat it. You don't want to get a nasty infection now, do you? Using magic, Scarborough cooled the injury. Batu sighed. He really did adore Scarborough. The only person he had ever liked. He laid on the sand and groaned. Now, said Scarborough, hopefully it isn't destroyed from you jumping into the lake like that. She removed the portrait from Batu's neck. Oh, isn't she lovely? Scarborough laughed, looking at the lady on the portrait. No, said Batu, grumbling and standing up on his sore leg. I'm going to hang it on our wall over our door, said Scarborough, hanging the portrait around her own neck. Why? Asked Batu, limping after her. To protect from spirits, of course, Scarborough replied. Batu did not understand, for the things Scarborough talked about were witchy things to do with magic, and Batu was only a dragon. He did not like magic, but he loved Scarborough and would do anything to make her happy. Well, thank you for listening. This story I've named Scarborough and Batu, and hopefully will be the start of a series of stories, whether I want to make a long novel out of it or just a bunch of little stories. I really like these characters, and I want to know where it leads, and I really want to know how they met and why Scarborough is Batu's favorite person, as dragons do not like humans for the most part. The short story was largely inspired by the book The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. It's a very beautiful, wonderful fantasy that has lots of new ideas and concepts and beautiful poetry. One of the key elements to The Girl Who Drank the Moon that inspired this story was the characters Glurk and Luna. I love the relationship between a big, giant swamp monster that was grumpy but had a big heart, who just adored this little girl who's crazy and wild, and they're best friends. And I just really liked that. And so I decided that's where the characters Batu and Scarborough came from. A big, grumpy dragon who doesn't like humans, and a little witch who he absolutely adores. And I wish I had gotten more into the character of Scarborough, but that's going to lead to me writing other stories, I guess. But I really do recommend that book, The Girl Who Drank the Moon. So if you are looking for a book to read, I highly, highly recommend it. One day, maybe I'll be able to write as good as Kelly Barnhill. The design for Batu, by the way, as a couple side notes I just wanted to talk about, is very different than the usual dragons I like to draw. I typically like to make dragons big and scaly and dinosaur-like, but there's just something wonderful about a fuzzy luck dragon, like Falcor from the Never-Ending Story, a dragon that you can ride and just dig your hands into his fur and bury your face into his back as the cold wind whips your hair through the sky. I don't know. I just really love that. And it's not something that I typically like because I'm usually a bigger fan of dragons that make sense. Like, makes sense why they can fly, and doesn't make sense at all why Batu can fly, but that's part of the fun of it. I like mystery and magic, and the thing about fantasy is not everything has to make sense, and I have to remind myself that a lot. Well, again, thank you for coming. I hope to see you next time.
If this is your first time here, please go back and watch the last video I posted. It's a dark fantasy story. It's much longer than this one, and I hope if you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you will enjoy that one. If you want to know what kind of stories you want to see in the future, please let me know in the comments and tell me your thoughts about this one. Do you like Scarborough and Batu, or are they kind of cheesy? Tell me if you've ever read The Girl Who Drank the Moon, and if you haven't, please tell me if you're going to read it, because you better read it, because it's a good book. And I will see you next time. Say goodbye, Everett.
I